After more than a year of delays, and what seems like maybe a year since my last video, audiences finally had the opportunity to see Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's iconic science fiction book, Dune. How will this film hold up to the book, or even the other film and television adaptations? My name is Michael J Migliore, and I am your man on film, and we're going to talk about just that. Denis Villeneuve has really been knocking it out of the park in the last decade or so, releasing one critically acclaimed film right after another. It was more than likely his work on Blade Runner 2049, the modern sequel to the Ridley Scott classic, that showcased his visionary world building that will place him in a path to realizing his most ambitious project to date. Dune is science fiction royalty. Considered to be the best-selling science fiction novel in history, its influence can be seen all over popular culture. Every science fiction property that you know of now in modern times is in some way inspired by Dune. Despite the pervasiveness of its influence, Dune itself hasn't ever reached a wide audience popularity, the likes of which some of the sci-fi contemporaries like Star Wars or Star Trek have. All of this is very likely to change though. Denis Villeneuve's Dune may very well be the gas that breaks this series into the mainstream. Without any doubt, Dune is the biggest quality blockbuster film to come out for many, many years. It's the culmination of vision and ambition played out on the largest of screens. That should be a requirement, by the way, when you go watch this film. You should definitely watch this film in the largest, and if you can handle it, the loudest screen possible, as I did. The film looks phenomenal, with a unique look that definitely takes you to another world. I felt as though I recognized some callbacks to some of the aesthetics used in David Lynch's Dune, but that could very well just be me latching onto what is familiar for me. The long and the short, or I should say the tall and the incredibly massive of it, is that this film emulates the incredibly large ambition of Villeneuve's vision for this book. Everything in this film seems so massive, from the alien architecture of Arrakis and Harkonnen homeworld of Gedi Prime, to the desert planet's landscape and the great Shai Hulud that traverses it, devouring everything in its path. Bless the coming and the going of him.
Bless the maker and his water. Bless the coming and going with him.
And populating the massive vastness of this world that Dune creates is a regiment of A-list actors at the height of their game. Everyone in this film delivers a wonderful performance respectful of the characters that they are portraying. It's hard to really pick any one performance out as the de facto standout performance of the film, as the film does have a very ensemble cast feel to it. If I had to though, I would definitely go with the lead, Timothée Chalamet. As I said before, this film is cast from some of the biggest stars around right now, and between him and Zendaya, these are the hottest young Hollywood has to offer. If Chalamet's chops wasn't already obvious by his numerous critically acclaimed roles in the past few years, Dune should be the film that obliterates any doubt. This will be the film that will give him the DiCaprio degree of propulsion to carry him from young Hollywood darling to big-name Hollywood star. This film cuts no corners when it comes to production, and a lot of that credit is deserved to the film's sound design and the otherworldly score from legendary Hans Zimmer. In this score, Zimmer brings the noise, like literally. The score is dotted with like alien sounds and chimes and tribal percussive sounds that complement the lush kind of sci-fi fantasy world of Dune. And to kind of just go along with that, by far the biggest positive there is about Denis Villeneuve's Dune is his execution in crafting a narrative that respectfully and concisely adapts Frank Herbert's novel. At least the first part of the novel, because this film does only take part in the first part of the novel. I can't remember the last time I watched a film that as I was watching it, I could recognize passages from the book as I imagined them, just coming to life. It's a remarkable experience to behold, and I really got a feel for the director's vision of the film. It was like a front row seat to his imagination as he read through and flipped through the pages of the book. The more that I think about this film, the more it seems like this is an easily palpable entry point for wider audiences to really just enjoy denser sci-fi. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that the film will be for sci-fi and the Dune franchise, what Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy was to that franchise and kind of that genre. It has taken an incredibly dense narrative and presented it without sacrificing too many important themes from the book. Whenever a filmmaker and writer endeavors to adapt a novel like this one, there is a degree of judiciousness that must be observed. An adaptation of this magnitude is never really about the authenticity of following what's on the page letter to letter. And that's something that's a big debate among genre and fantasy, horror, comic book fans, all alike. There are so many times when there's just not logistically possible, especially when considering your typical feature-length film. So the problem arises, when you have a narrative that is as dense as the Dune series, what can be sacrificed without losing its heart and soul? And I think that Denis Villeneuve showed great judgment when it came to this. I really had a great time with this film, but what are my criticisms about this film? Because you know that I'm going to have a criticism about everything. Essentially boils down to the elements that were trimmed for the sake of a tight, intelligible, cohesive narrative. As someone who is familiar with the book, or at least the previous films, I potentially had a far richer experience with the story, having some familiarity with the nuance of the politics and the characters. I'm left wondering though, how does that deep lore that is definitely hinted at in the film and touched upon in some instances come across for someone who hasn't attended the prerequisite courses? The film's cast did a fantastic, almost loving rendition of the story's characters, and while there is ample screen time given to the film's main protagonist, Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, and a few select others, such as his dad, Leto Atreides, played by Oscar Isaac, even fan favorite Duncan Idaho, played by fan favorite Jason Momoa, seems to have gotten way more screen time than one would probably have expected compared to some other characters whose impact to the story cannot be understated. Take for instance the character played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, Tufir Hawat, and the Mentat Discipline, of which Polka Dot Man was also a part of. Hawat and the Mentats are basically human computers who are employed by the Grace houses to deal with matters of strategy and politics, and all the sticky parts of being a member of the Imperium. One part C-3PO and one part Hand of the King, his official title in Duke Leto's court is Master of Assassins. He was also responsible for teaching young Paul Atreides the skills needed to become the next Duke. Now, I noticed him more prominently in my second viewing of the film, but in relation to his presence in the book, he's barely there. The film only gives us the briefest of hints of his abilities at the very start of the film, when his eyes gloss over and he enters a trance to give Duke Leto a calculation that would warm the cockles of any protocol droid. A friend of mine referred to him as Duke Leto's general, which just confirms the ambiguity that the film leaves him in the order. The character has a very large presence in the book. He actually even suspects Jessica, Duke Leto's concubine, of actually being the traitor in the House of Atreides when they arrive on Arrakis. The other character is Dr. Yue, and the idea of imperial conditioning. In all honesty, I very much get why the film didn't go deep into the backstory and the motives of Yue. Again, there are some nuances to his character that aren't incredibly important moving forward and would only prove to probably confuse those that wouldn't completely understand the motivations and basically why he's the traitor of House Atreides. So I understand why they didn't go into too much depth for that, but not having that understanding and that knowledge prior to the case definitely leaves something wanting in his whole character arc. There are some scenes that appear in the book that I would have loved to see played out on the big screen. In the end, though, I truly do believe that Denis Villeneuve executed the best possible adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune that we could possibly expect. Dune is just such an involved story. There are so many facets of it intertwined in and around itself, and there's only so much of that can effectively be told in a close to 3-hour movie. The film itself deals only with part 1, as I mentioned before, of the first novel. Villeneuve had intended this to be 2 films to tell the first novel's story, a part 1 and a part 2. And hopefully with any luck and the success of this first film, we will see that second part happen sooner than later. The film, it's like going to a Baskin-Robbins for ice cream. It will be physically impossible to get a cone of 1 scoop of each of the 35 different flavors, but you will enjoy it no less if you just get 3 large scoops of like vanilla chocolate and cookie dough. I understand that there will be people that will find this film too long. There will be some people that will find this film too slow, despite the fact that the last 45 minutes is one long battle/escape sequence. Some people will just simply not like Dune, the ideas it delivers, the ideas it touches upon, the social commentary that it makes. If you are interested in watching a close to perfect adaptation, though, of arguably the best sci-fi fiction story ever told, you should enjoy this film. And with any luck, there should be room for some 11 other films after this one, should they adapt all 6 of Frank Herbert's novels, following the 2 films per novel formula. So we have that to look forward to for the next 20 years or so. The bottom line is I really enjoyed this film, and I hope you do too. I hope you at least give it a chance. And I do hope that it inspires people to actually go in deeper on the whole Dune franchise, read the books, watch the David Lynch movie. I actually love the David Lynch movie. He doesn't like it, and a lot of people don't. But definitely look into it. It's a very interesting story, and it's a wonderful social criticism of our times, made from back almost 60 years ago. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been Michael J Migliore, and I have been your man on film. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe, and throw some comments down there if you have something mean to say about me, or if you have something mean to say about the movie. Until next time, take care.